This is Flashpoint. For those of you who are unfamiliar, it's a TV show owned and operated by Kenneth Copeland on the Victory Network. Airs on DirecTV, Dish Network, and Verizon and Spectrum and all of them. Like every cable package has a Victory TV channel. Well, Kirk Cameron made an appearance, of all people, on this episode of Flashpoint. We're going to split this into segments, so we may not get to Kirk Cameron this episode, but trust me, there is some absolutely unhinged stuff on here you are not going to want to miss. So let's give this a watch and see what they have to say for themselves on Flashpoint. Oh, and we're going to be playing Final Fantasy VII while we watch.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad you're watching. This is Gene Bailey, and you are watching Flashpoint. So glad you're with us tonight. All right, so this week has been an unusual week. If you were looking for us Tuesday, we were there. You had to watch long enough. I know a lot of you guys on social media don't stick around.
Oh, wow, sick burn. Yeah, this guy is far right. This whole show is far right. It's insane. Like, the most unhinged stuff you can imagine happens on this TV show. No joke.
But we were there, and we were part of the Victory Channel Victory-Thon. I got to make sure I don't get my words mixed up on that Victory-Thon, because Victory Channel totally supports Flashpoint every week. We don't have to pay for the airtime. They support us. We are a Victory Channel original program, so we're a part. So if you didn't watch, and we would really give you the opportunity to invest in the Victory Channel, you can do it by calling 1-800-9.
Yeah, I'm just going to skip past their ads. I don't want to advertise for them.
All right, so looking forward to seeing you there. Well, let me welcome tonight on the program, first off, Dutch Sheets and Rick Green. Hello, gentlemen.
Dutch Sheets, the guy on screen here, is a televangelist, an extremist, a far-right figure, extremely influential, has a mega church and the whole nine yards, and makes all kinds of unhinged claims, just so you know who he is. I've covered him a few times before.
Thank you for joining tonight. Dutch, Omaha was a great, or Iowa, depending on how you want to look at it, it was a great evening. What were your thoughts about that?
I thought it was outstanding, Gene.
So Iowa was where they held another Flashpoint service or whatever. It operates a lot like a church service, except it's kind of like a conference, a far-right conference that mixes religion and politics inextricably. It's nuts.
I thought you did a great job. The team did a great job. I know when I shared, people don't normally see me fired up the way I was, because on my Giving 15s, I sit with a piece of paper and read it. But
yeah, Dutch Sheets, in the episode they're talking about in Omaha, I covered this at the time, and I think if it's the one I think they're talking about, he started crying and telling a story about draping himself in the American flag and lying in the corner just sobbing because he thought he was losing the country and all kinds of unhinged stuff. Let me see. I think I may have a clip of it yet. So this is the clip that I suspect he's talking about, where he got way more emotional than usual. Listen to this.
I went to over in the corner and I grabbed a flag we had and I wrapped it around me and I laid on the floor.
That is absolutely wrong in the eyes of the Founding Fathers. They would be so disgusted that somebody who calls himself a patriot did such a thing.
And I sobbed, and I knew I was crying with him. I knew we were crying together for this nation, Gene.
God and Dutch Sheets were crying together for the nation.
And it became so intense that at one point I said, and I meant this. This was not hype, or I'm not trying to be sensational here.
Buckle up for a really sensational story.
I said, God, please, you have to stop this. Because my heart is literally going to break and I'm going to die. And I said, please don't kill me. So for 3.5 hours this happened, and here's what he said to me at one point.
He obviously had some kind of an emotional breakdown, clearly, right? And what caused the emotional breakdown? The fact that he believed that America was being lost to communists or some other nonsense. This is what it does to people. I'm telling you, being this politically invested is not healthy. It is not healthy for anybody.
And I know this was God. And I could never, ever, ever be convinced this wasn't God. He said, I must have this nation. I must have this nation back.
Okay, well, first of all, I disagree with the idea that it was ever non-religious. There have always been religious nutterbutters in this country who, for the most part, outnumber the secularists. But for another thing, why doesn't God just take the country back if he believes that it's not in his hands? I don't understand. This is, I guess this is what Dutch Sheets was talking about when he said a minute ago in the Flashpoint episode that, like, it was an emotional time or whatever else. Let me just step back a few seconds so we can listen to what he said again.
I know when I shared, people don't normally see me fired up the way I was because on my Giving 15s, I sit with a piece of paper and read it.
Okay, I don't think that was fired up. I think that was borderline emotional breakdown. Complete meltdown.
But when I'm preaching, sometimes that just happens.
Yeah, we know, Dutch, we know.
Like when I was sharing, it was like someone just stuck a hot coal in my belly, in my spirit. And it was like I couldn't stay seated. I couldn't be quiet.
That's great.
The passion of the Holy Spirit came over me. Yeah. And,
Or alternatively, maybe it was the passion of mental breakdown that came over you. Is there a possibility that maybe that was what it was?
It was awesome. Everybody was awesome.
Yeah, it was a wonderful evening. Now, Dutch, I'm going to tell you something that you do.
Wow, I love it. So I guess he decided that he had such a serious breakdown on stage that he needed to address it at the following episode. That's crazy.
That always makes me just a bit nervous. You jump up and you get all the way to the edge of the stage and your toes are hanging off the edge of the stage. I'm like, please stop, Dutch. Don't dive off the stage. Don't fall off the stage. It was great. It was great. Thank you for being there. And we're looking for Phoenix, too. So
could you just put a rail up?
I'm thinking I might need to do that. Might need a rail up there. Let me welcome Rick Greene, Patriot Academy. Rick, I just told the guys we're going to send you a Flashpoint shirt. Maybe you'll wear some of our gear on the program.
Wow. Okay. So Patriot Academy is, I think Rick Greene is like the leader of this group, Patriot Academy or whatever. It's just this far-right extremist thing. Let me look it up real quick. So this is the Patriot Academy website. This is their About Us section. Inspiring patriotism, equipping citizens, educating a nation. Equipping citizens with what is my question. I'm a little disturbed, honestly. And I think Rick Greene is like the founder of this organization. I'm not super clear on his role. Patriot Academy is a proven track record of excellence through a simple 5-part strategy. Train citizens to understand and influence government policy with a biblical worldview. That's psychotic. Demonstrate the principles of ethical servant leadership from the founding fathers' perspective. What does that even mean? Ethical servant leadership, okay. Teach the political process and essential leadership skills through intense hands-on training. Inspire citizens to be salt and light in every area of society and culture. That's a biblical quote. Equipping citizens with the tools to be force multipliers as they in turn train other citizens. Okay, wow. This is just insane. So it seems to me that this is probably like a nonprofit organization that teaches people how to be right-wing extremists and get involved in politics. I think that's what's happening. Teach people to lobby, teach people to run for Congress or for Senate or whatever other thing. That's the impression that I'm getting here. And I'm assuming that Rick Greene probably founded it. Rick Greene didn't found it. Oh, he's president, I think. Okay, yeah. So it looks like Rick Greene is president of Patriot Academy. So there's the answer. And Flashpoint does have the guy on a lot. I've seen him on there pretty frequently. It's an extremist training ground, basically, is what it is.
Man, I would be glad to, but I got to say to Dutch, brother, listen, I talk about fired up. Sunday, I was in Edmonds, Washington, and Pastor Alec Rollins could not stop talking about you and how fired up you were. In fact, we're doing this Sunday.
Yeah, I get the impression that he feels embarrassed by what he did at the previous Flashpoint, crying and sobbing and talking about wrapping himself in an American flag and just losing his mind at this event. That's not even all he did. He did a lot more. He started screaming and stuff on stage. It was insane. So anyway, I'm guessing he feels bad about it and everybody realizes that he does. And so they're trying to kind of make him feel better, I guess. That's my assumption.
Sunday night thing in his church they call apologia. It's really cool. They just really get into apologetics and all. But he said that Sunday morning, he didn't even preach, brother. He played you instead of preaching because you were so on fire and it was such a blessing to them. So I just thought that was really cool that he just shared that with me Sunday night.
I guess they feel like they got to put a puff in his petticoat because of everything he did.
Live in front of all those folks, and then I get to be on with you tonight. So bless you, man. You're blessing a lot of people across the country. So thanks for being a vehicle for the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, that's exactly. I hear that all the time. Wow, Dutch was great. He's not like that on Give Him 15. That's always the next comment. It was a great time. And listen, you guys need to come join us. Be there in Phoenix. We invited Rick.
That's really sad, honestly. That's really sad. The guy obviously had a breakdown, and they're just trying to make him feel better now.
But he's got somewhere else he's got to go. So
see, now I'm going to have to just cancel everything and rearrange my schedule because you made me feel guilty. I'm going to find out. Somebody out there with a private plane, call me so you can get me to Phoenix in time.
Yeah,
that's a joke, but it's really not much of a joke because he does know a lot of people with private planes. Lindell is constantly on this program with Rick Green, and Lindell has a bunch of private jets. So absolutely nuts, man.
Good. And we've got a few other guests hanging out there that haven't confirmed yet. So it's going to be a wonderful 2 nights. It's the first time this year we've done 2 nights. It's the way we're ending out the year. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful season. The whole team here, we're really looking forward to it, especially coming up right before the midterm elections. All right, so let me get started. Let me show you this tweet, gentlemen. This is from Jack Posobiec, our friend, and you may have heard about this in the news. Let's show this about a teen that was murdered. Now, before I get that.
Okay, yeah, I remember hearing about this. Marjorie Taylor Greene famously claimed that Democrats are out there taking out Republicans right now and blah, blah, blah. We'll get to it in a second. Just keep listening here.
Let me show you this. Remember this? Remember Joe Biden a few days ago? Remember this when he was
Okay, that wasn't a few days ago. That was like over a month ago now.
Standing in front of the red screen and with the Marines behind him and talking about those those MAGA Republicans. And
notice if you're unfamiliar watching this 5 years in the future, Joe Biden on September 1st, 2022 gave this speech that basically called MAGA followers or Trump followers a danger to democracy, effectively. He said, you can't have a successful democracy when either I win or you cheated. That's not how democracy works. They're refusing to accept results and all this other stuff. It's just not good. It's not good. And Flashpoint completely lost their minds over it. They could not handle that. They freaked out and said, this is him calling us an enemy of the state. This is a Hitler speech, blah, blah, blah. And they found a single screenshot from the speech of him with his fist in the air, which makes him look like he's doing what Hitler famously did in one of his most famous speeches, which is pounding the thing to make a point or whatever. He never did that. Joe Biden never pounded his lectern or whatever to make a point the way that Hitler did. But this is the nature of propaganda. Portray everything as though he is Hitler. Try to make him out to be Hitler to the best of your ability. Try to make him the root of all evil. Do to him what he is doing to you in their minds. He's saying these people are a danger to democracy. Make him out to be the danger to democracy and blow it up out of proportion. Make it even worse on his end. That's the nature of propaganda and of Flashpoint and the far right. These people are very much leading the charge in the propaganda war against the left.
So emphatically coming against them and talking about be careful because they're violent.
That's not what Biden was saying at all. At no point did Biden say any of that stuff. This is all fabricated to make themselves feel like victims. Victimhood or persecution complex creates a sense of group loyalty, brotherhood, and camaraderie, and locks people into their positions even deeper. In my experience, interestingly enough, atheists in America are absolutely most definitely persecuted, but don't really have a persecution complex at all. Not really. I certainly don't feel like I have a persecution complex about, how Christians treat people and stuff. But Christian extremists, like evangelicals, they most definitely do have a persecution complex, a glaringly obvious one. It's like absurd how persecuted they believe that they are. And the reason for that is because they want to make people believe it harder. They want to lock people into their positions even harder. This is the whole idea. That's why they have to lean into it. Let's keep listening.
Coming against them and talking about be careful because they're violent.
Nonsense.
Well, this week the opposite happened, unfortunately. This young man, I want to show you him. He was admitted, this is in North Dakota. He was a teen, and he is.
Okay, now before they get into this story, let me give you the actual information behind this. From my understanding, Marjorie Taylor Greene actually covered this too, and I'm not sure who covered it first, Flashpoint or Marjorie Taylor Greene, but let's see if I can find Marjorie Taylor Greene's coverage of this. Give me a second. Okay, so this is Marjorie Taylor Greene basically making an outrageous claim. Just listen to what she says here, and this will provide the context for the upcoming Flashpoint clip.
We're all targets now, though, for daring to push back against the regime, and it doesn't stop at a weaponized legal system. I'm not going to mince words.
Okay, regime is not the correct word for the Biden administration. It's just a presidential administration, plain and simple. And she wants desperately to paint it as a dictatorship, effectively. It's absurd.
With you all. Democrats want Republicans dead.
That is as delusional as it gets. Democrats absolutely do not want Republicans dead by any stretch of the imagination. You know what Democrats want? They want Republicans come back to reality with the rest of us. They want people to chill the fuck out and stop screaming about being persecuted and like having these wild eyes like they're going to do something insane and constantly talking about a civil war. That would be fantastic. But not too long ago, I talked about the fact that everything that Republicans accuse Democrats of, they've been doing. That's not projection. That's a political strategy. It's a propaganda strategy. It's basically like the no you strategy. If they can accuse Democrats of doing something, then when Democrats turn around and discover that they're doing it, the accusation coming from Democrats against Republicans has less of an impact because it feels like they're just repeating what the Republicans said. It is a political strategy, and that is what Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing right now. She is preempting the accusation that Republicans are Democrats by claiming that Democrats are doing it. And she does what's called anomaly hunting. Anomaly hunting is where you look through a data set that's gigantic, say 325 million people. That's how many people are in the United States, right? And you find one or two examples of what you're talking about. So I think she cites two examples in a minute. So 325 million divided by 2, that's a 1 in 162 million chance that what she describes here would happen. In a country of 325 million, you can definitely find a couple examples of that. It is astronomically rare to find something like this, but she finds a fight between two people over a political issue where the Democrat won the fight. Shouldn't have been a fight in the first place. It was wrong, period, but she finds an example of a Democrat winning a fight between two people for political reasons and uses that as a pretext to claim that Democrats are killing Republicans because they don't like them, and it's like a mass attack right now. So keep listening to what she says here. This is how propaganda works. She is a propagandist. And honestly, I don't even believe she's coming up with this stuff. Somebody is feeding this stuff to her. She does not strike me as that intelligent. But listen to what she said here.
Democrats want Republicans dead, and they've already started the killings. An 18-year-old boy was run down by a Democrat driver who confessed to killing the teenager simply because he was a Republican.
That is, not only is that a misrepresentation of what was said, of the confession, of the situation in general, but it's a misrepresentation of the data and the facts. Like I said, she was anomaly hunting, and she found one example, a 1 in 162 million chance that she would find something like this, and she did. Actually, the guy said he believed that the person was a member of an extremist group, not that he was a Republican. And like I said, they got in a fight. We'll cover it more in a little bit, but they got in a fight with each other, and the Democrat... I don't even know why I'm labeling these people this way. That was not really fundamental to the point of the story. One person got in their car and attacked the other person. As a result, Marjorie Taylor Greene finds this example, goes up here and screams about how Republicans are under attack and blah, blah, blah. Persecution complex. And prepping people for the claim that Republicans are taking out Democrats. Prepping them by preempting it and claiming Democrats are doing it to Republicans instead. That's how propaganda works.
Even right here in Michigan, just last week, an 83-year-old woman was shot in the back for advocating for the unborn.
Once again, not what happened. She was not just going about her day and saying, you know, I think I'm pro-life, and then somebody attacks her. That's not what happened. It was a complex situation where there was a scuffle, a disagreement, and I think it may have been an accident. I don't even remember exactly what happened, but it wasn't like she's just moseying about her business and people started attacking her because they knew that she was pro-life. That's insane. That's delusional. No, it's not delusional. It's propaganda. Marjorie Taylor Greene knows full well that she's completely full of shit. She does this intentionally.
Yep. Joe Biden has declared every freedom-loving American an enemy of the state.
Again, no, he didn't. They're talking about that one speech that he gave on September 1st where he said MAGA Republicans are setting out to destroy democracy. You can't have a functioning democracy when one side says either I win or you cheated. That's what it was all about. That's completely different than what she's portraying here.
But under Republicans, we will take back our country from the communists who have stolen it and want us to disappear.
I don't want anybody to disappear. I want them to stop being completely unhinged from reality.
We will expose the unelected bureaucrats, the real enemies within, who have abused their power and declared political warfare on the greatest president this country has ever had.
Okay. So, all right. So I've not declared political warfare on anybody. I don't hate anybody for anything. I don't want anybody dead or any of that stuff. That is a complete misrepresentation of how I feel about anything at all. But they need to feel like victims. They need to feel like they are being persecuted because it builds that sense of camaraderie and brotherhood. And let me point this out. Now that we've seen Marjorie Taylor Greene talk about that, she started this ball rolling, right? And in lockstep, every political outlet started repeating it along with her. They all started saying the exact same thing, talking about the exact same stories. They find a single example of something that almost resembles what they're talking about, but not quite, not really. And they scream about it like it's happening all over the country right now. They want people to be afraid, and they want them to believe that they're under attack and persecuted. By the way, this is something called the fire hose technique, fire hose propaganda. Putin used it heavily in 2014 in Crimea went during the Crimean War or whatever. He would come up with a bunch of ideas. You can see Donald Trump doing it too, with like the documents, the stolen documents. Come up with every idea you possibly can. Doesn't matter if they conflict with each other or not. I declassified the documents by thought. I declassified the documents before I left vocally. The FBI packed the documents, not me. What were some of the other ones? I'm trying to remember now. They planted the documents. I didn't even have classified documents with me. They told me I could take the documents with me. Just as many things as you can come up with and throw them out there and see what sticks. Okay, well, it looks like people didn't really care if the feds packed the document or if I packed the document. So we're just going to ignore that one. It seems like people are leaning into, or the news is leaning into the claim that you can declassify by thought. So that's the one I'm going to lean into. That's how it works. It's like throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. That's what it's all about. That is the fire hose propaganda technique. And not only do you need to throw things at a wall to see what sticks, but you need to throw it through as many news outlets as possible. You need to broadcast it far and wide. Get it to as many people as possible, because no matter what happens, somebody is going to hear one of the lies, and they're going to repeat it. Somebody will hear it. That's how the right wing works right now, the far right. Marjorie Taylor Greene is repeating this lie about Democrats attacking Republicans and just innocent Republicans being targets of blah, blah, blah. Flashpoint comes out here and says it. I mean, the word for word, the same exact arguments. Like if you look at Mike Pompeo's Twitter account and Donald Trump and Eric Trump and Don Jr. and Ivanka and all of them, they all almost word for word sometimes have the exact same tweets. The exact same propaganda tweets. Why? Because they synchronize with each other. They work together and plan out how this is going to happen, how they're going to do this, how they're going to propagandize to people. This is the nature of propaganda. This is how it works. So let's listen to Flashpoint repeat the propaganda that Marjorie Taylor Greene most likely got from somebody else, but started anyways, about Republicans being targeted in terrorist attacks by Democrats.
Absolutely. His name's Cayler Ellingson, and he was run over by a guy named was drunk. Now, full disclosure here, he was drunk, but here's the thing. We're not accusing him of doing this. He said it's because of that is the reason he ran him over.
Okay. Well, first of all, they don't actually know what reason he gave, because it was given to police, and supposedly the police reported that in a conversation or whatever, he said that he was guilty or he confessed or whatever else. This is going through the criminal justice system, and they have no reason to believe some of the stuff they're saying here. But okay, let's keep listening.
I don't know. We'll see what comes out of this, but I want to play this short clip. It's tragic, tragic news. Watch.
New developments tonight in the death of a teenager at a Foster County street dance.
According to court papers, it wasn't an accident, but they say a politically motivated attack. WDAY News reporter Matt Henson broke the story for you online today. He joins us live tonight for...
The way it's portrayed, this guy was hunting for Republicans and found one and then attacked him because he was a Republican. No, they got in an argument. They got in a fight. And one guy discovered that the other guy had all kinds of insane, bizarre beliefs and attacked him for it. It was not right, but this is the nature of propaganda. Stretch it just a little bit further. It's an indefensible thing that happened, period. It's indefensible. Should not attack anybody for anything ever. But it's not what they're making it out to be. And that's what makes it propaganda. They go one step further, and nobody can correct them on it because the correction isn't much better. Isn't much better. A little bit, but not much.
Why the driver confessed to police. Matt?
Dan and Kirsten, according to court papers, moments before he was killed, 18-year-old Cayler Ellingson called his mom to come rescue him because 41-year-old Shannon Brandt was chasing him in the city of McHenry, where the street dance had just wrapped up. The papers don't indicate how Cayler Ellingson was being chased, but by the time his mom could get there, her son was dead.
I don't understand the differences.
41-year-old Shannon Brandt had a tough time understanding the charges against him, vehicular homicide and leaving the scene of a deadly accident.
He's actually the one that called 911 to report the crash.
Police say it happened in this alley around 2:30 Sunday morning after the street dance. Court papers show Brandt told the 911 dispatcher that he just hit Cayler Ellingson because the teen was part of a Republican extremist group and was calling people to come get Brandt after a political argument. Ellingson's mom told police her son called her just before the crash asking if she knew Brandt, and she said she did. She does not believe her son knew Brandt.
Still trying to determine exactly what all transpired at the time of the crash, but prior to that as well.
Well, that's kind of interesting. So the police are saying they're trying to determine what transpired before the crash and during and whatever else, right? But Flashpoint seems to be telling you exactly what you need to know in their eyes. They're giving you all the information that you should want. This poor Republican was going about his business, not doing anything to anybody, and this evil Democrat comes in and decides to attack this Republican for no reason and take him out, and sure enough, that's what happened. This is propaganda. This is how it works. This is what we're watching right now.
Police say Brandt was drunk when he hit and killed Ellingson with his SUV.
We do not know of any witnesses. We still are making attempts to interview potential witnesses from the street dance, people that were present prior to the crash happening.
A judge ordered Brandt held on $50,000 cash, which he objected, saying he's not a flight risk.
I have a job and a life and a house and things that I don't exactly want to see, go by the wayside.
So remember, in the minds of the people watching this guy is the root of all evil and should be taken out. Like, should be given the death penalty or something, or should receive like 30 to 40 years in prison or whatever. In reality, we don't actually know the context or the situation. If he did actually attack this kid for no reason and it was intentional, for no reason other than because he's a Republican, that's wrong. That is bad, and I want to see him in jail too. I want to see accountability for that. Something tells me that's not actually what happened. That's not the full story. Because you know why I say that? You know why I'm not 100% sure? Because we're hearing this story from Marjorie Taylor Greene and Flashpoint. They are the least trustworthy people alive, as far as I'm concerned.
Family that are very important to me.
I'm sure they are important to you, and I'm sure Cayler Ellingson's family was important as well. Let me show you what's happening.
From what they said in the news report, Cayler Ellington, which is the name of the Republican, I guess, was threatening this guy's life, right? I believe that's what they said. They said that he was planning to bring people there to attack the Democrat, and then, like, I'm feeding into it by even calling them the Republican and the Democrat. I shouldn't be. They were just two people who had differing political beliefs, but that's my understanding of the whole situation. Like, we just don't have enough information yet. If he actually did this for political reasons because he hates Republicans and he wants them dead, and then he took action to make that a reality, I doubt that's what happened. But if it is, he should go to jail. I'm not trying to excuse anybody's anything. I just don't believe a word out of Marjorie Taylor Greene's or Flashpoint's mouths. That's all.
Since then, look at this tweet from Mia Cathwell. Jail confirmed to me Shannon Brandt reportedly confessed to a North Dakota teen because the 18-year-old victim was part of a Republican extremist group. Posted bond is back on the street. Since his release, he's been scrubbing his social media, cleaning it up. All right, so let me bring in Rick Green first. Rick, when you see this, the point, whether he was drunk and didn't know what he was doing, to me is kind of immaterial.
Well, I mean, if it was an unintentional attack, then it's not immaterial. If he was like doing something that he wouldn't normally do if not for the fact that he was not in his right mind, then that's not immaterial. I don't give a shit if it's immaterial to you or not. To the case, it is very relevant. And aside from that, I'm really getting the impression here that this is not exactly the way that they're portraying here. I get the impression that they're twisting this around to be something completely different than what it actually is.
It's hard. I've had to search to even find this on any media outlets. And honestly, I didn't find it. I found it on social media.
That's because it's just another normal case, and they are doing everything that they can to blow it out of proportion and make a bigger deal out of it than it should be. It's wrong to attack people, certainly wrong to attack people for political reasons, absolutely. This is one small story in a sea of bigger, more important stuff. You know that the oceans are warming right now? Do you know that? I mean, they don't accept that, of course, but there are way more important things to talk about than a single instance, an anomalous instance of a fight between two ideologically opposed people, we'll say.
It's the only place I found it. And the reality is, if it was the other way around, coming off Joe Biden's speech, we would be looking at a much different uproar. There'd be burnings and riots and everything else going.
No, that happens actually pretty frequently, disturbingly frequently. There are a lot of political things from the right. Not just like taking out Democrats either, but do you guys remember the QAnoner that his kids with a spear gun, I think, or like a fishing something or other? That's pretty disturbing. That's the far right attacking people for political reasons. That's not an attack on Democrats specifically, but there are a lot of examples of Republicans attacking people for political reasons. Democrats, children, other Republicans, it's all over the place, actually. There are far more examples of it than there are examples of Democrats doing that. Like, way more examples. But none of that matters to this guy. You know what matters? Pushing his political beliefs down people's throats at any cost.
Going on. And then to only hold him for a short amount of time and with a $50,000 bond, that's
the justice system. That's how it works. If you don't like the idea of bond, if you don't like the idea of like cash bail or whatever else, then advocate against it. You know, we've been advocating against cash bail for a long time. It weights it in the favor of the rich. And this guy apparently had enough money to come up with $50,000 in cash. That's insane. That is a lot of money. That's more money than I've ever seen in my life. In one place, at least. But you know what? This is the system that Republicans have built and maintained and refuse to let go of. So if you don't like that, change it. The thing is, they do like it. They do like this system. They do appreciate a system where the rich can get out of trouble easier than the poor. They just don't like it when it affects them. That's all. It's like Tina Peters, the woman who leaked private voter data to Mike Lindell and got charged with 7 felonies over it and went to jail for it. Republican, of course. It's like her crying and screaming about how bad jail was.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't go to bed. They keep the lights on 24/7. They have it, you sleep on a 1-inch plastic mattress with no pillow, no sheet, just barely covering up with a blanket.
She's describing when she was arrested for stealing private voter data, when they brought her to the jail.
And in my case, there were 5 other women in this particular room that I was in. I can't even call it a room. It was a jail cell with a toilet. Which is
a room, but that's neither here nor there.
And my chief deputy was in a little bit larger room with 9 other women in.
Oh, so now you acknowledge it was a room.
Her cell. It was a no contact. They did not allow us to communicate, contact, be together. The people that were in there were just hopeless. It was so sad. The food in there, I would have eaten my dog's vomit rather than eat that food. It was.
Well, guess what? Point is, Tina Peters is actually out of jail now. And what do you think? Why don't we take a poll? Do you think she's advocating for prisoners' rights now? Do you think she's fighting for people to have better living conditions in prisons? No, she's not. She doesn't give a shit. You know what she gives a shit about? Herself. That's all it ever was. I've been talking about the fact that prisoners are still legally allowed to be enslaved in the United States, according to what is it, the 14th Amendment, I think? Slavery is still legal in the United States. And there are still prisoners who are forced to work for little to no money, like a slave. Today, right now, this is happening. As we speak, there are people being worked who are not being paid for that work. I've been talking about that for years. What is Tina Peters talking about now that she's out, now that she's free and has a voice? She's talking about how evil Democrats are and how she wants to see them burn and all this other insane stuff. She has completely dropped the idea of advocating for prisoners' rights now that she's out. It was never about how prisoners are treated. It's about how she was treated. Same thing with Rick Green and Gene Bailey here on screen. It was never about how prisoners are treated or the cash bail system or anything. It's never about that. They love that. They love that it gives an unfair advantage to the rich. They don't like that it affected them in this one instance. That's what it's about.
That's not even a slap in the face or a slap on the wrist. That's really nothing for a bond. Rick, what do you think?
Well, and Gene, we don't even have to guess or wonder what it would be like if the shoe was on the other foot. This is the comparison's horrible. I mean, this is just proof that we don't have equal justice or blind justice in America. Here this guy is, admits that he murdered this kid, admits that it was over a political difference and that it was...
Okay, we don't know any of this for sure. The trial is still ongoing, and we have no information on the material facts of the case. All they know is supposedly what they read in a tweet that this person claimed to have gotten from the jail or some other thing like that. They don't actually know any of this. We are waiting for information. But you know what? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to these people. What matters is that they need to spread propaganda, whatever it takes.
Because he didn't, that he thought he was a Republican extremist. He even uses the language of the president. So did the president incite this murder? But compare that right now, letting him out of jail the next, within 48 hours on a very low bail. Compare that to the January.
$50,000 is a low bail? No, that's actually really, really high. That's one of the higher bails. If they want to keep you in jail because they're afraid of what you might do, then but they don't want to exclude you from the possibility of getting out. Usually they'll set it to $50,000 cash. I've been involved in the justice system a lot throughout my life, and I had a brother-in-law who was constantly in and out of jail, constantly. And, it was for all different number of things. Usually the way it works is they will allow you to get... usually they'll give you a number, say $50,000, and they'll say you can either give us 10% of that in cash, or you can give us the whole thing in property or assets or whatever. So if you have a $100,000 house, you can put that house up for bail, and it would cover that amount. You can basically put the deed up, and it guarantees that you are going to make it back to your court date. If you don't make it back to the court date on time, then they take the house. They take the deed. It belongs to them. That's kind of the way it works in most areas. It varies from area to some degree and things like that. But that's the general idea. In this guy's case, I believe they said it was $50,000 cash only. I believe that's what they said. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but that means he couldn't put a house up for bail. That means he has to come up with the money. Imagine coming up with that much money on the spot. Holy shit, dude. He probably had to sell stocks and withdraw it all from the bank and everything. That would have been a complete mess. It is not easy to do something like that. If I had $50,000 bail, I would just have to sit in jail. I'd have no option. I wouldn't be able to get out. That's insane. That is an insane amount of money. Naturally, these people have no idea what they're talking about. They don't understand the system that they're criticizing at all. And in fact, they actually like the system. They just don't like that it's affecting them.
January 6 folks who have been denied bail, they have all the same things this gentleman was just saying. They've got families and homes and jobs and everything else that's been destroyed over the last year and a half. And they...
Oh, the January 6 people, these poor victims, huh? Yeah, well, They were actually offered bail. A lot of the January 6th people were, but many of them refused to comply. They said they're sovereign citizens and they are not beholden to the orders or expectations of the court. Seriously, some of them said this stuff. I'm thinking of one woman particularly who said this, and she was actually out on bail for a while, but she refused to show up to her probation. She refused to work with the courts or talk to them or anything like that. So they remanded her back into prison. A lot of these people had their chances and refused to cooperate at all. If you cooperate, usually they'll let you out, depending on how severe the infraction or whatever.
They didn't murder anyone.
They didn't murder anyone. No, that's true. The January 6th people didn't murder anyone, but they absolutely tried to run a full-blown insurrection against the U.S. government. So there's that.
Some of them didn't even break anything. They didn't even break the law. They were there for a rally and did what was legal. So
no, the people who did what was legal, i.e. staying outside of the Capitol building, were not charged with crimes because there was a legal protest scheduled on January 6th. If they didn't go into the Capitol building, they were not charged. People who went into the Capitol building were charged with misdemeanor trespassing, and most of those people, if they agree to cooperate, are on the outside. They're not in jail. They are facing their charges without having to sit in jail and wait for them. Some people got destruction of property charges and sedition charges. Those people deserve it and are not on the outside. Like the Oath Keepers founder or leader, Stuart Rhodes, for example. He does not need to be on the outside ever again. He needs to sit in jail for the rest of his life, as far as I'm concerned. So anyways, yeah, there's nothing unfair happening to the January 6th people. It's all been completely fair and above board.
I mean, that's a two-tier justice system. If we were in a world where the rule of law was being followed and everybody was being treated the same under the law, I might not even object to the guy making bail because we do believe in innocent until proven guilty, even though he's actually admitted it. But that's not how they're treating other people who had
innocent until proven guilty is a concept that is used within the courtroom for what it's worth. It's like the approach that we're supposed to take in trials. It's not, this guy, I get the impression he doesn't even really understand what that means in the first place. But that's neither here nor there. The guy supposedly, allegedly admitted it to police. I don't know why that would be public information.
Had far lesser offenses, but they were of a different political persuasion. So we have a two-tier justice system treating people different based on what their political values are. That is a very dangerous place to be for a nation. And the president is only encouraging this two-tier justice system. And I would frankly say encouraging maybe not this level of violence, but he's certainly encouraging a level of intolerance towards anyone that doesn't get on board with his political agenda. They're somehow a threat to the nation.
How is he encouraging violence against Republicans? This is unglued from reality. This is disconnected. This makes absolutely no sense. Like, nothing that this guy said in the past 5 minutes is attached to reality in any way. He is just trying to make people feel like victims. No more, no less. That's what it's all about. And it's honestly sad. It's honestly deeply sad. You know why? Because people are buying this. People believe it. People eat this shit up.
They are, evidently a huge threat because, as you so well pointed out, January 6th insurrectionists never had the opportunity to make bail.
Yes, they did. And a lot of them did make bail. A lot of them are on the outside. The insurrectionists? No. The insurrectionists are on the inside and are not getting out anytime soon. But the people that were there at the Capitol protesting, or the people who went inside the Capitol or whatever, yeah, they were allowed to make bail, absolutely.
Were denied bail. And they've been
treated horribly.
Treated
like
horribly, still in jail.
Country, not allowed to shave,
Oh, you got to be kidding me. They think this is bad? Okay. You don't like this? Then why don't you go to Guantanamo Bay? And I say that for a very specific reason. You know why I named Guantanamo Bay specifically? Because as a matter of fact, January 6th defendants requested transfer to Guantanamo Bay. No joke. Capitol rioters demand transfer to Guantanamo Bay. They think the food will be better. You know why I suspect they actually requested transfer to Guantanamo Bay? I think they live in a delusion. I think they requested transfer because they believe that Hillary Clinton is actually in Guantanamo Bay, and they want an opportunity to see it for themselves or something like that. That's a QAnon belief. They think Hillary Clinton is being detained there in barges off Guantanamo Bay or something like that. They live in a fantasy land. These are the same people that we're talking about on Flashpoint. They're not in the same universe as us. Seriously. It's honestly sad. So anyways, they're not being treated any worse than any other detainee or any other prisoner or whatever. They're being treated exactly the same. They just don't like it when they're the victim of it. I've been talking about prisoners' rights for years. When was the last time they talked about it until they were affected by it? Have they ever mentioned prisoners' rights before they were affected by it? I doubt it.
To clip their fingernail. I mean, I know that sounds silly to some people. Just imagine for 6 months at a time not being allowed to take a shower or shave or do the. I mean,
that's ridiculous. That is illegal. And that's simply not happening. He lives in a fantasy land. He's just trying to make them out to be the biggest victims alive. That's what it's all about.
They have been treated like animals. We treat the worst of criminals better than what we've allowed these people. They're in a gulag in Washington, D.C.
If the things that he said were true, then I might have a problem with it. It's simply not.
Compare that to this guy getting out within 48 hours.
It's sad. And again, I come back to this, Dutch, with mainstream media. I actually, before the program tonight, I did turn on Fox News, and I heard the host there talk about.
Flashpoint kind of bounces back and forth between liking Fox News and hating Fox News because it depends on how in love with Donald Trump Fox News is at any given moment. If Fox News really, really likes Trump or they're on his side at the moment or whatever else, then they are in favor of Fox News. So let's see where they stand now.
About this. And the whole point was, well, we're not saying this is political. And I understand the point. You're not saying that he ran over him because it was political, but yet that's what he is saying. We're not accusing. I think that's what's getting lost is that the defendant.
Actually, what happened is the police claimed that he did it for that reason. In fact, I don't even know if the police claimed that. Some random Twitter user that I don't know claimed that the police claimed that he claimed. I mean, we're 3 degrees off now. I'm going to need a little bit more than that, especially when it's coming from Flashpoint. I don't trust a word out of their mouths.
Is saying this is why he ran him down. He's not even.
They're being treated exactly the same as other people in jail, and that's why these nutter butters hate it. Not because they're objectively wrong things to do to human beings, but because they are Sky Daddy's favorite and need special treatment because they're so persecuted. Absolutely, 100% agree on that point. It's insane, man. These people have absolutely no clue what real suffering is, and they are sitting here screaming about how mistreated they are. It's absolutely absurd. So that's Flashpoint. Honestly, these guys get emotional on stage all the time. I'm not sure why Dutch Sheets even felt the need to explain his bizarre emotional meltdown. The audience probably wouldn't have thought anything of it. It was probably for his own peace of mind. Anyways, in the next one, they get into the fact that Biden announced that the pandemic is basically over. They've spent the last 2 years claiming there was no pandemic. Would you be surprised to find out that when Biden said it was over, they were appalled that he isn't taking it more seriously? They live off of contrarianism. Stick around for the next one.